Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello and welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm your host, John Johnson. I've titled this podcast, Making a Relationship Yours. What's great about relationships is that when we get in one, we tend to want to do well at it. We take lots of advice from people, we read books, and we try to get ourselves engaged in it. And at least we start out with the idea that we're going to be ourselves, we're going to be positive about this because this is something we want to have in our lives. But we often get sidetracked because we have so much information and we're trying to process it as well as do it. So the doing part of it, it's not just about taking in the information, but making it active, making it live. Well, I'm going to try to break this down and help you make a relationship yours. Think of it in this analogy. We're going to plan a trip. We're going to plan a road trip. So we're going to decide where we're going to go. And in the relationship itself, what we often do is we see somebody that we're attracted to and we just expect that to be it. We just figure we're attracted to them and we'll just sort of limp this thing along. And what tends to happen is in situations like that, it just grows stale because we run out of ideas. Because you really haven't actually had an idea. It's just we expect something to drop in from the heavens and inspire us every so often to do the next thing. Or in some cases, you're attracted to someone because of whatever it is about them that just has that, they have that chemistry, and you just follow them around. Now that's not very exciting when you want to be with someone who also contributes. So if they're just following you around and letting you have all the ideas, well, it's great for a while because you may have a partner who's willing to go and do things with you. But do you really get enough out of that situation? And in the short term, if that's all you want, that's great. That's like a friendship. But when you're trying to build this thing past that and have a connection, something that seems like it has a foundation, well, you have to put effort into it. And when you think of planning a trip, what do? You figure out where you want to go, how you want to get there, the places you want to stay at, and you do some sightseeing along the way. And that's part of the beauty of it. But you've both invested in this. And that's the thing about relationships. Sometimes we don't both invest. There's the tendency, and people even speak of this part, that you just start cruising along. And for a while, that's okay. But if it comes across that the one partner or the other does not feel appreciated, and that's something that happens when you're just sort of cruising along, just sort of looking out the window and not really checking in with your partner. That's why I'm saying we're going to create a plan here. So when things like that happen, it's sort of built in so that we know that we're just enjoying the scene and not just not appreciating the partner. So I'm going to give you some examples of something, putting your stamp on the relationship. And that's really what this is about. You look at people that have good relationships, and they may not even describe it in this way because they haven't thought of it, but it's really about putting your stamp on the relationship, your character, your personality. That's what helps you be alive in a situation. Think of anytime you're doing something that you're really enthusiastic about, the enthusiasm is automatically there. If you enjoy roller coasters, you like going up and down the hills, if you like being out on a golf course, if you like surfing, if you like bike riding, all of these things are pulling something out of you that makes you feel energized. And that's what you want to share with your partner. Because, another way of describing that is charisma. Think of that person that comes into a room in a party and they just seem to exude charisma. One of the things that really makes a good mark of that is how that person who's energetic includes everybody else in the room. See, we all enjoy being a part of something like that. And when you have that energy, that magnetism, you can have that in your relationship, but also by sharing the attention to the person that you're with, including them, letting them know that they're important to you on this trip, and because you are investing yourself. That's how another way that you can put your stamp on the relationship. So think of something that you would like to do with your partner, and big or small, but think of something that you'd like to do. Plan around it. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like you're planning a trip across the country, getting airline tickets and things like that. That's a bit big. You can do that later on. But the concept here is that you're actually paying attention to your partner's needs, paying attention to your own, being open and free. And you're going to do this different, because if you ask people about other relationships they've had, something that I think they can all agree on is that those things sort of died out for some reason. There was something about the relationship, it just sort of fell flat. Now, they may have been attractive and all of that, but that sort of fades, because it's not just about the good looks, but it's about the energy and enthusiasm and how people feel when they are around each other. And planning this trip, planning the relationship, having things that you look forward to. Now, women talk about this all the time. And as a guy, one of the things I always find interesting, obviously guys and, men and women think differently, and that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. But one of the things that I hear from women is they want to be able to look forward to something. And because of that, when they no longer have something to look forward to, it comes across to them, and I'm saying this to the guys, and women, you can validate this, that they feel like they're not important. They feel as though at some point this thing, the energy is starting to fly out of this, and because they don't feel important, at some point they feel neglected, feel unappreciated, and that's when it starts to fall flat. And what they're wondering about is the feeling, the emotion still there in the partner. Now, what I can tell you from a guy's perspective is it's not about not appreciating you. It has a lot to do with when we were in that phase of the relationship. Some people call it the honeymoon phase. It could have been something we were going through that everything was just really clicking on all cylinders. Other things show up in life, and they get the attention because they may even feel like, to a guy, it may feel like it's a sentinel event. It's a crisis. It's something of major purport. I need to get a handle on this, get control of it. And there are times when various things get our major focus. For a time, it's the relationship. Then maybe it's repairing the car. Then maybe it's the project on the house. Then maybe it's something to do with the job. And, these things each take their turn in a guy's mind. Well, it's not that the partner isn't important. It's merely a way in which a guy processes things and wants to give equal attention to all the important things in life. And it's one thing to feel inundated with all of the responsibilities, because the last thing a guy wants to feel is like he's being buried, like he's a failure. And, we put up a strong front in order to be able to deal with whatever challenges and things that happen. Now, some guys are a little more demonstrative about that. They might be a little more emotional. You can kind of see them. You can see the look on their face. And then some guys aren't. Some guys don't really put that out there because they're keeping things inside. Now, I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, but that's how a lot of guys process it. And if you're a woman and you're dealing with a guy who handles things in that way, then I think what you are probably feeling is the lack of attention, the lack of energy toward yourself. So the end result is the air and the interest in the relationship, it seems like it's deflating. So by taking an interest in the relationship, the way I'm saying, creating this roadmap and making it your focus, we're going to turn this around and going to keep it going good. Look, I'm going to take a break here, and I'll be right back, and we'll investigate this some more. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm John Johnson, talking about making a relationship yours. So I kind of set things up in the first segment, and one of the things I said is, look, you got to plan your trip, plan your relationship, and this is just getting things going so that you're putting your stamp on it, you're creating some energy, and you're going to do something fun together. And underscore the fun part. And what I want from both of you to consider is no one is just a tag-along here. And tag-alongs aren't bad, but think of this. When you've been in a relationship for a long time, I think one of the things that's really nice is that you have a partner that, both people don't necessarily have a huge interest in some things. You might do a lot of things together, and then there's others that, your partner just kind of goes along with you because they're your partner and because they love you. And that's a great trait. I mean, that's what a good companion will do from time to time. They don't have to be really deep into it, but they want to be with you and they can enjoy your time, your space, your company, and they can watch you enjoy your sort of thing. Okay, this isn't one of those things where we have a tag along. I want you both to really think about something that you would like to do, that you enjoy, so that you can see the enthusiasm in each other for whatever it is we're doing. See, this elevates it so that somebody is not just being a spectator. Because that happens in a lot of relationships. I mean, think about it. There are a lot of scenarios where one person is probably a little more dominant and the other person just sort of tags along. And that's not a bad thing. But what I'm really trying to get both partners to see is see each other and being able to enjoy something and seeing what that joy looks like on the face and in the actions of the other person. You see, when you can embody that, then you can think more in terms of, okay, this is what my partner looks like when they get out of their shell, when they're really having a good time. And then you can learn to be a little more intuitive about how to plan things like this. Quite often, you'll see, and this is one of those things where oftentimes we like people who are different from us because one may have that gift of being able to be a great host at a party. They have all of that charisma. They plan the party and they have all of the party favors and they get all the food there. And this isn't just something that's specific to one gender or the other. I like the idea that I was, for example, I was at a birthday party for the executive producer. Now, he knows lots of people and he created a really festive atmosphere. Everybody enjoyed themselves. We had a great time. And that's the kind of person that I think we can easily find ourselves drawn to. But what are your strengths? And what makes you get out of your, say, I don't want to say comfort zone, but out of your normal, and become really big and excited? That's what we want to see. You want your partner to see that. And when you both can experience that of each other, then that's something you look forward to having and repeating. Some people don't even know you can have that. And until they see it, they think it's just something that happens on TV and that they write it into the script. No, people really do have those kinds of experiences. And it's not just around sex. It's interesting how we can buy into the idea that we get excited and invested about sex because we know how that feels for us. And we can assume that when the other person feels good, you're going to feel good. It's something that's easy to buy into, and that's something we look forward to. Well, I'm talking about looking for other things where you have the same type of experience that You get the buy-in. So whatever that is, look for that. And that's why I don't want somebody that's going to behave like a tag-along. So this is where the planning comes in, and you have an open discussion about the kinds of things that you like. And preferably the kinds of things you're going to do with each other. I'm not talking about bringing along a bunch of people who are going to interfere in this, because this is the one-on-one thing, and that's the importance here, because the two of you are significant. And if you have all these other distractions going on, then it's going to take away from you being able to focus on each other. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is what it feels like to have the attention of your partner. That's an important feeling to have, because you feel more special when you know that you have their undivided attention. Something else I tend to want people to watch out for, and it's the unexpected interruptions. By that, I mean, if something doesn't go to plan, I don't want you to lose yourself in the focus of that you're having fun. Now, it may take a few beats to get things back on track, but let's not lose the enthusiasm. For some people, it's really easy to lose their mojo when, let's say, something comes up, and I, for example, am not someone who's really bothered too much when a change of plans happens, because there are things that come up. Say, for example, I've been on flights in an airplane where we've been delayed. And, that delay can have a ripple effect, especially if you have a connecting flight and you've got to figure out the plans afterward. I just tend to know things happen in life, and I don't get down about it, because what happens is you're up here, and then when that negative energy starts to come into this, then your partner starts to suffer as well, because they worry about you. They're connected to you. And I am mindful of the impact that I would have on my partner. I think that's something that we all have to learn to be mindful of. Check in. This is how you can check that. You check in with your partner to see how they're feeling. And it's okay to verbalize things for a while, but also do it with the idea that, hey, look, I'm just verbalizing this. I'm going to get this off my mind. But be positive about the idea that we're going to find a solution to this, because that lets your partner know that you're not going to be down the rest of the trip. I've met many people that one seems like they have to always be the cheerleader for the other, and that's a burden. That can be a burden that throws things off kilter, and then it's hard to get it back on track. Now, understandably, there are things that happen that are bigger than us. And when those sentinel events happen in life, natural disasters and things like that, yeah, these are serious. But most things in life aren't. And be happy that you have your partner with you. We're going to get through this. We're going to go on. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a good time whatever we're doing. Remember, we're together. And this is really about experiencing that. And then giving your partner the opportunity to see you rise to the occasion, to be able to keep your enthusiasm for life and, again, focus on your partner. Because for the most part, what's really important here? It's about the two of you being together and having fun. Whatever happens around the situation is something else. There are many things that are out of your control, and getting caught up into that really takes away from why we're doing this whole thing in the first place. Because remember, we're learning to put our stamp on the relationship, making it yours. And by doing that, you'll be a good example for yourself. I mean, think of how many times you've solved a problem that you've never solved before. And, sometimes we have to do it a few times to get better at it. But it's a better way to be, because when you have solved that, don't you feel better about it? I know I do. There are situations in relationships that I have felt challenged to be able to master. And one of the things that I know that I don't have control over is how somebody else feels if I say something that impacts them. Now, I can be mindful about what I say to them so that I don't put them in a negative space. So you, in your words, be mindful of what you're saying because it does affect people. I like saying things that are really positive and uplifting because it helps, it builds people up. It builds up their confidence and it makes them happy to be around you. See, that's what you want to do. Give it an example of if someone were to walk up to you and to tell you you're doing a great job, don't you feel good inside about that? You feel acknowledged. You feel special. You feel important. That's what you're doing to the other person by being able to focus on them and tell them how important they are to you and that you're glad you're together. I know stuff's happening, but you know what? I would rather be with you than anyone else. That's going to make them feel good. Like, I'm going to take a break and I'll come right back after this.
The GSMC Sex Podcast is a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet. Download the GSMC Sex Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you can find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey there, and welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm John Johnson, talking about making a relationship yours. So, I've covered a number of things in the first two segments, and I'm kind of going to do a little bit of a recap. So, it's, I want you to plan it with your partner, and that's really significant because you want their buy-in. And, it doesn't have to be a huge thing. So, we don't want to go so big, and if you haven't had a lot of practice with something like this, and let's start small and smallish, not too small, but smallish. Plan an activity, something that you can do for a couple of hours, and get in the rhythm of experiencing something that you both like. And the checking in part, this is something else that a lot of people forget to do throughout their lives, is really to check in with their partner. I mean, it's one thing to sit there and just kind of yammer on about what you're thinking in the day, but really checking in with your partner and seeing how they feel. Maybe about how they feel about their day, but maybe in reaction to what you are telling them. I mean, that's pretty significant. I think we get used to talking at a person, which is different than talking to a person. Now, spouses and significant others tend to take that on because that's just part of the relationship dance. We do that, but it's nice to talk to them and get their feedback because you know what, your significant other can really give you a lot of information about yourself if you are open to hearing it. And it's not just criticism, and I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of people don't ask what their partner thinks, is because they feel like what's going to always come out is criticism. And it isn't. There are times when your partner knows that this is not a moment that I'm here to be critical. I really want to be supportive. But there's some information that I want to share with you because I've watched this all along. So learn to be open and receptive to that and not always hurt by what your partner is going to say. So something else here I'd like to mention is the idea about putting a time limit on things. Because here's, I think, the fear that happens, especially when you're new at this, is that this thing has to go on and on and on and on and on forever. We don't know when to end. I think if we put a beginning and an end on it, we have something not only to look forward to, but it's about learning how to plan an activity for the both of you so that you can enjoy each other's company, enjoy each other's space, and transition to the next thing really smoothly. When we plan a car trip, for example, we basically know where we begin and where we end in terms of miles. Now, however long that takes, some of you can plan that into it as well. But we're just kind of stuck for the duration. And sometimes that could be torture because there's so many variables in that you just sort of endure it. But let's say we're going to do something for 2 hours and we know that however it's going, in 2 hours, we can do a debrief. We can figure out what worked. We can figure out what we can do better that we enjoyed and go from there and plan the next activity. See, that's a good way of looking at it, and it's a lot less stressful for the both of you. Now, here's something else that I have remembered from all the years of being in a relationship, and particularly for guys. Guys, listen to this. And women, if your guy doesn't know this, then it might be one of those things where you have to explain it to him so that he gets it. But guys, when a woman cries, it is not always tears of pain. Sometimes those are tears of joy. When you do something really special and thoughtful. And the message, the underlying message is, I get you, I understand you. And if you can imagine how good it feels to be heard, to be understood, there are times when there are tears that come out of that. And I can remember when I was new and experiencing something like that, I wasn't even sure that I trusted what was being said. I was being told, oh, I'm happy, and these are just tears of joy. I didn't even know if I believed that at the time because I thought maybe that was just a cover for something else that I was going to have to learn about later and do damage control. Well, when I got to the bottom of it, I really found out that I'd done something really nice, that it was really special, it was really thoughtful, and it wasn't by accident. It worked out, and it was heartfelt. But the thing that really landed on me was, I wasn't expecting the tears. I was just expecting that everything was a nice gesture and so on. So if there are tears, they are not always tears of pain. There are times when they're tears of joy, and those are the good ones, because those are the ones where you create the long-lasting memories, and you want to hang on to those, because those are the kind of things that you can do over, and you'll always be the hero. And ladies, guys are not always understanding of the tears of joy kind of thing. Like I said, some guys think that women will do that, and that they're upset, and that they're trying to cover for it. So it bears going over a few times to validate the fact that they've done something really good and really special, and that you like it. I know it may seem strange that you have to explain it to a guy, but you do. And I'll tell you why, because guys are used to being told how wrong they are for having done things. And we try to do things that we think really work. We think it hits the mark, and it misses it. It misses it wildly. We miscalculate all the time in the interest of trying to do something special. In time, we learn that simple actually will work. We don't have to always go over the top. It's almost like when you have Valentine's Day. What are all the commercials telling you? They're telling you have to buy this. You've got to do this. You got to do this, because if you don't do this, then you're going to be seen as that. And, to be fair, there are people that really like all of that over-the-top stuff. But I think year after year, you wind up trying to top yourself. And where do you go? Well, you got to get a little more creative. And sometimes it's not really the big stuff, but it's the little stuff that matters. And you have to start working towards that understanding. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's where you do this, making a relationship yours. You build your relationship brick by brick. And over time, and even a short time, but over time, you really get a sense of the flavor of how it's going to work and your part in it. It's great to see that. It's great to feel that. It's nice to have an impact on someone else and know that it's a good impact. So think about it. Making a relationship yours. I'm John Johnson. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. Thank you for listening.